Breaking news developing at this hour. A possible terrorist attack at a concert in England. You are looking at what was chaos inside a stadium, one of the largest stadiums in Europe.
Thousands of people were in attendance for tonight's Ariana Grande concert. When that show ended, a massive explosion ripped through that crowd. Here's what we know right now. At least 19 people are dead after this explosion tonight, another 50 injured. Of course, it is still very early in the investigation, but officials are saying a suicide bomber is suspected to be behind this explosion tonight. Fox 59's Shannon Hauser live in the newsroom right now with much more on what we're learning at this hour. Shannon.
Well, Dan and Fanshin, we're learning officials in Great Britain, they're really still trying to gather all of this information as we speak. There's still a lot of things we don't know, but the headline here tonight, police in Manchester, England are investigating this as a potential terrorist attack. Again, Manchester police telling us at the end of the Ariana Grande concert at Manchester Arena, about 10:30 local time, there was some sort of an explosion. That created panic inside the arena, fans frantically trying to get out. We know now 19 people have died, as many as 50 others are injured. News reports say this appears to be a terror attack orchestrated by a suicide bomber. We spoke to a local counterterrorism expert tonight who says, unfortunately, attacks like this just aren't surprising anymore.
You know, it's really difficult to make it through a contemporary checkpoint. It's not impossible to make it through a checkpoint, but with the contemporary checkpoints and the screens that are in place, the challenge for people that are operating venues like this theater is, where do you do the screening? You have to draw a line someplace, and that's something that transportation officials have wrestled with, entertainment officials have wrestled with, and unfortunately it appears that this bomb made it into the lobby.
While the details about what kind of bomb is still being sorted out, we do know the bomb disposal units were seen outside of Manchester Arena. We do have more information coming right now in a presser. We're going to take it to that.
We have 19 people confirmed to have lost their lives in the explosion and around 50 casualties that are being treated at 6 hospitals across Greater Manchester. My thoughts are very much with those that have been injured and lost their lives and their loved ones at this terrible time. We are doing all that we can to support them. Officers from Greater Manchester Police and Emergency Services are working at the scene and are supporting those affected. We are coordinating the operation here at Greater Manchester Police Headquarters. An emergency number is available for all those concerned about their loved ones or anyone who may have been in the area. The number is 0161 856 9400. We are currently treating this as a terrorist incident until we have further information. We are working closely with National Counter-Terrorism Policing Network and UK intelligence partners. This is clearly a very concerning time for everyone. We're doing all that we can, working with local and national agencies to support those affected as we gather information about what happened last night. As you will understand, we are still receiving information and updates, so we'll provide further detail when we have a clearer picture. I want to thank people for their support and would ask them to remain vigilant, and if they have any concerns at all, to report them to the National Anti-Terrorist Hotline. The number is 0800 789 321. It is important also that people here in Manchester avoid the area around Manchester Arena so that emergency services can continue to effectively deal with the incident at that location. Thank you very much.
Have there been any arrests, Chief Constable? Sorry, you just heard it.
Live there as British authorities update us on the latest on this situation tonight. We're also hearing from Indiana Senator Todd Young, tweeting his thoughts tonight on the terror attack in Manchester. He says, quote, "To target teens is the height of cowardice. My prayers with the victims and families waiting to hear from their loved ones. Hashtag Manchester." This is a still developing situation tonight. We will stay on top of it as more details are released this evening. Keep it right here on Fox 59, and you can get the latest details by heading online to our website at WXIN-FOX59.com. Much more coming up later this hour.
As we continue to monitor that situation right now, we do want to turn to our weather. We are in for a rainy week ahead. It all starts tomorrow with a chance of thunderstorms.
Yeah, a downpour could give us more than an inch of rain later this week. Let's check in right now with Fox 59 Chief Meteorologist Brian Wilkes, your weather authority. Brian?
We could certainly use more dry time, and we will get it for much of the day tomorrow, but the weather pattern will turn soggy again by midweek. This is the sixth wettest sixth wettest May on record. In the last several years, it's been a little bit wetter and wetter each couple of years. The numbers have been going up, but this time we're running over 3 inches above average, and this May is the wettest in 60 years. But the radar is dry right now. We can't afford really any more moisture. We don't need it, and there will be rain chances, but not tonight. It's dry and it's comfortable with temperatures in the upper 50s and lower 60s. Another very comfortable night coming. Temperature dropped into the mid 40s last night. Won't be quite as cool, and rain out to our west will more likely dry up or fall apart throughout the overnight hours, so we will maintain some dry weather for at least the overnight and much of the day on Tuesday. But an upper level system will park itself here Wednesday, Thursday, bringing rain chances. The humidity dropped, the temperatures have been comfortable, but as the rain moves in, the temperatures will cool as well. The wet pattern will resume. And is there more rain in the forecast for the long holiday weekend and for race day? The answer is yes. We'll break down the timing and the latest thinking on what you can plan for Memorial Day weekend coming up in just a few minutes.
Okay, Brian, thanks. We'll see you soon. Bad news out of Clinton County today, where an EF1 tornado hit over the weekend. The firehouse in the town of Forest cannot be saved. Volunteer firefighters spent the day pulling the crew's equipment out. We also took some video from Sky 59, as you see here, that gives you a more complete picture of the damage. The department is finding new places to house their fire trucks, but depending on where they end up, response times in Forest could be slower. It will be until midsummer before they can start rebuilding their firehouse.
Also tonight, 2 popular race car drivers are safe after being robbed at gunpoint by 2 teens late last night here on the city's west side. Dario Franchitti and Scott Dixon, along with Dixon's wife, were robbed while sitting in the drive-thru here at this Taco Bell. This is now prompting more questions tonight about youth violence in our city. Fox 59's Trevor Shirley has much more on what some say tonight needs to be done about this. Trevor?
Hey, Fanchon, good evening. This is not something that anybody wants to hear about at any point, but especially not during what's arguably the biggest week of the year for the city of Indianapolis. It's also raising, as you mentioned, an issue that we've been hearing a lot about recently, teen violence, and what can be done to stop it. IndyCar drivers Scott Dixon and Dario Franchitti were mum today about last night's harrowing holdup, but Dixon's Chip Ganassi teammate Tony Kanaan had plenty to say.
After such a wonderful day at the track, get robbed at gunpoint, get a gun pointed to your head, buying a $20 meal, it's kind of scary.
Authorities say the 2 drivers, along with Dixon's wife, were sitting in the drive-thru lane of this Taco Bell on West 16th Street just before 10 o'clock last night. That's when authorities say 2 teens approached their car, pointed guns at them, and then took off with their wallets.
Never think that will happen to us here.
Dixon's wife also not saying much, only that she continues to love Indianapolis.
I'm not really allowed to talk about it.
Cops later caught the suspects, who they say were just 14 and 15 years old.
First of all, disturbing because these are young kids.
Pastor Malachi Walker says more needs to be done to keep teens on the right track. His youth ministry, Young Men Incorporated, aims to do just that.
We have to be more aware that we got to get our young people involved in youth programs and activities and get them off the streets.
He says during the past few weeks there have been more incidents involving teens, guns, and violence. This incident now bringing more attention to that problem, given the people police say those teens targeted.
It's one of those things that you never think it's going to happen to you, and you know, it's just the world that we're living right now.
And police say they were able to track down those suspects using surveillance video that was captured at the scene of that crime. Authorities say one of those suspects later confessed and then led them to evidence that they're currently using in their investigation. We're live downtown tonight. I'm Trevor Shirley, Fox 59 News.
Trevor, thank you. A Nigerian-born church pastor is shot to death in Indianapolis, and tonight investigators are still searching for his killer. This is Olawandemi Epanusi. He was killed at an apartment complex near 10th Street and 465 on the west side. He moved to the United States from Nigeria, where he worked as a pastor. His friends say he'd been working to help pay for his family to move here. Police wouldn't confirm a motive, and they say right now they don't have any reliable suspect information to give out.
They knew it was coming, but tonight, carrier workers now know the exact date. Some of them will start losing their jobs. More than 600 people will be out of a job after 2 rounds of shutdowns. Fox 59's Tanae Howard joining us now with much more on how workers are dealing with this reality. Tanae?
Yes, Antion, starting July 20th, the Indianapolis carrier workforce will shrink drastically. But for these workers, having an exact date when they will lose their jobs has actually brought them some stability. It's been months of uncertainty, but now carrier workers know the day they'll be leaving the Indianapolis plant for good. July 20th marks the beginning of the end.
There will be 381 employees coming out at that time. And then in December, on December 22nd, the second half of those employees will come out of the plant.
In total, 632 workers will be out of a job by the end of the year. Union Vice President Robert James says the number is higher than previously reported because it includes the 70 to 80 temporary workers Carrier hired. They were brought in for seasonal help and knew that their positions were only temporary. But for everyone, an end date shows the end is really near.
I would think that it makes it more of a reality because now they can apply for a job and give a date for a start time where they couldn't do that in the beginning. So this is something that the majority of them are looking forward to.
Many workers have already started preparing to find new jobs.
The majority of the people are staying to the end. Right now we have Employee India on the inside of our facility, and they have been helping the people put together resumes and to get ready for training and different things of that nature.
James says the feeling of fear and uncertainty have turned into focus to make sure carrier employees are prepared to take care of their families. And most of the workers have turned their attention to training and advancing their education to assure that they will be able to land another job. In the newsroom tonight, Tanae Howard, Fox 59 News.
Tanae, thank you. A developing story right now. A Greenfield police officer had not been trained in 4 years on the weapon he used in the death of a local man. An autopsy has not yet confirmed the cause of death for Douglas Wigington. He died 2 weeks ago when an officer used a 50,000-volt taser on him. The department requires all officers get training on the weapon, but they do not require refresher courses.
Well, 6 days until race day here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This year's drivers were all smiles today as they posed for this pretty impressive 2017 class photo right there in the Yard of Bricks. Then last year's champ, Alexander Rossi, joined Scott Dixon and Ed Carpenter for the front row photo shoot. Rossi and Carpenter posed with the American flag, and Dixon proudly displaying the flag of his homeland, New Zealand. Beautiful picture there. Well, Hoosier Angela Brown will hit the mic right before the race on Sunday. She will be singing God Bless America. The Hoosier native says she has always dreamed of being part of the 500 since she was a little girl, and she is so proud to salute the men and women who have sacrificed for our country. All right, we want to make sure you are ready for race day and the race day experience. All you have to do is head online to our website, fox59.com. We have everything you need there, fox59.com/Indy500.
Well, she was tapped by the president to lead the Department of Education. Tonight, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos is here in Indiana. But she didn't get a kind welcome from everyone here in the Hoosier State. Fox 59's Matt Smith was there as both DeVos and Governor Eric Holcomb delivered speeches tonight. So, Matt, what did they have to say?
Yeah, hi, Dan. This ahead of President Trump's first official budget proposal being released tomorrow. Tonight, Betsy DeVos promised a historic proposal to expand school vouchers nationwide. Acknowledging, though, to a crowd of supporters this evening here downtown, it won't be easy.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. Betsy DeVos has got to go.
Education Secretary Betsy DeVos has become accustomed to the welcome from protests. Tonight in Indianapolis was no exception.
We will not sit back and be quiet as public schools in Indiana and nationwide are threatened.
President Trump's pick to lead the Education Department appeared, though, before a familiar and friendly crowd tonight, addressing the American Federation for Children, the organization she chaired before heading to Washington.
We must acknowledge that the future is bleak for millions of students if we only continue to tinker around the edges with education reform.
So tonight, hours before President Trump's first budget proposal is released, DeVos unveiled only broad details of what she says will be the most ambitious proposal to expand school choice nationwide, leaving numerous questions for parents nationwide.
Let me be very clear. I firmly believe every state should provide choices and embrace equal opportunity in education. But those are decisions states must make. If a state doesn't want to participate, that would be a terrible mistake on their part. They will be hurting the children and families who can least afford it.
When pressed for details in our interview, DeVos wouldn't say yet whether or how states would be punished or incentivized based on a decision.
The specifics of how that will be accomplished remain to be seen, but we're going to be talking about the necessity of really empowering states in a big way to make those decisions.
In her speech this evening, DeVos praised Indiana for having one of the largest and fastest growing voucher programs in the country. Critics, though, tonight attacking not only her policy but her credentials, saying they will fight strongly any attempt to expand school choice nationwide. Reporting live downtown tonight, Matt Smith, Fox 59 News.
Matt, thank you. Also tonight, investigators are on the hunt. They are looking for a serial killer 25 years after he started his deadly spree across the Midwest, right here in Indianapolis. It's how the suspect became known as the I-70 killer. Countless tips and leads later, the man behind that name is still elusive, still on the run. Fox 59's Haley Bull is talking to relatives and detectives tonight about why they are not giving up and are Indy unsolved. Haley?
Relatives of at least half-dozen victims say there is always a hole left in their heart from the lives cut short. But even decades later, they and detectives are hopeful someone knows something that could help piece together who is pulling the trigger.
I knew something was wrong.
It's just like pow, pow, pow. At this point, we don't have any suspects. This is just eerie.
Not a day goes by Mike Crook doesn't remember these faces.
I personally have visited every crime scene, every single one of them.
Each crime,
there's no way I was going to go back there.
Each victim, each tip sticks with him. Since a serial killer's first known murder, right here in Indianapolis.
The victims, for me, there's rarely a day goes by I don't think about it.
How confident are you that you're going to find this guy even 25 years later?
I think the possibilities are good.
Crook, one of the only original investigators still working to track down the so-called I-70 killer.
I can't explain it.
He is still determined to put the pieces together, even as tips trickle down.
We haven't given up.
The first murder, April 1992. 26-year-old Robin Fuldauer was working alone at a Payless shoe source on Pendleton Pike. Investigators believe late afternoon, a man came into the store and took her into the back room.
It's like pow, pow, pow.
And fatally shot her before escaping out a back door.
There were people that were in and out of the store that some actually stole shoes, which kind of threw us off, you know, at the beginning.
I knew something was wrong.
It wasn't until a worker next door checked in and discovered the crime scene.
It's not until you start getting the pieces of the others do you realize it's just more than a robbery.
The killer then traveled across the Midwest along I-70, leaving a trail of bodies. 3 days after Robin Fuldauer was killed, Patricia Majors and Patricia Smith were shot to death at the bridal store where they worked in Wichita, Kansas.
They were expecting one individual to arrive shortly after closing.
But the killer showed up instead. Retired Police Lieutenant Michael Hennessy says the late arriving customer actually did talk to the killer, but the killer let the man go.
And that was our first lead in the case there as far as having an eyewitness.
From that witness, investigators were able to develop this sketch, but still no suspect.
This is not the ideal circumstance to investigate.
He hit next 2 weeks later into Terre Haute. The victim, Michael McCown, the only known man murdered by the I-70 killer. 1 week later, Nancy Kitzmiller in St. Charles, Missouri. 3 days after that, Sarah Blessing in Raytown, Missouri.
It doesn't feel like 25 years at all. He was probably 27 then.
We sat down with the family members of both Hoosier victims, still reeling from the violence 25 years later.
It was horrible. The first thing I thought was, well, I thought of my mom. And I thought, Nothing will ever be the same. And it's not.
You never stop thinking about the ones that you've lost, and lost in such a tragic, heinous way.
Investigators across state lines were able to link all 6 murders using ballistics, but still no suspect. So they continued tracing the killer's tracks.
We literally went through and got hotel registrations from every single hotel across I-70 and up and down the interstates all over.
Investigators checked toll booths, license plates, traffic stops, but this was 25 years ago, and media coverage, surveillance, and video technology were all nowhere near where they are today.
At one point, we know we had 67,000 names.
Might be a thrill kill.
More than a year later, investigators learned of 3 more possible victims, this time in Texas. 2 women killed and another shot in the head but survived. The ballistics are different, but Crook says the MO is the same.
I think that we all believe that the same individual has committed all of these crimes.
Investigators track down each tip, each dead end, each false lead.
We have a couple of people who are incarcerated in jail in Texas that one of them is claiming maybe to have done this.
At this point, we don't have any suspects.
But Crook isn't convinced.
The facts that he knows are just things that would be common to anybody.
Decades later, Crook still pours through the evidence, even listening to a 911 call moments before a victim dies. A reminder to keep digging.
I guess I really do hope they catch him, just so he can't hurt anybody else.
Among everything else, it's just another thing that really reminds you, hey, you don't want to give up on this one.
If you know anything about the crime, call Central Indiana Crime Stoppers at 317-262-TIPS. No piece of information is too small to report. Even if you don't think it's important, it could prove vital to these cases. Guys, back to you.
All right, Haley, thank you. Detectives are still coordinating efforts, they tell us, across those states with more tips, the tips you just saw, and you'll find more information on a possible gun used and more details from each of those cases. We have all of that outlined on the web at fox59.com.
We also continue to follow breaking news tonight out of the UK after an explosion at an Ariana Grande concert. That explosion has killed at least 19 people and injured 50 and is now being investigated as a potential terrorist attack. We're going to have the latest details coming up at the bottom of the hour.
Also, a child is killed at home by a stray bullet. We're going to show you the lead. Police are working right now to find the shooter.
Here's what's coming up next at 10:30.
Hurting heroes. A thief has stolen a veteran's trailer. How that veteran was using the trailer to help others and how you can help now, coming up next.